It's the Emit Blackwell Show, searching the web for the most creative, intriguing, and captivating people in the world.
Welcome once again to the Emit Blackwell Show. Before we begin, I'd like to thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. On this episode, I have author Kimberly Brouillette to talk about her Monastery Murders series. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Earth Science and Geology from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte and a Master of Arts in Biblical Studies from the Trinity Theological College and Seminary. Her latest novel, Method in the Madness, is available now on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. We are very excited to have Kimberly Brouillette on the show. And hello, Kimberly. How are you today?
Hi, Emit. I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Really good. I'm doing really good. So now, you've written 3 books in your Monastery Murders series. When did you actually begin writing?
I began writing in about 2011, and before that, I'd actually been an editor for about 10 years and had edited several books prior to that. So, and I was contributing editor in a book in about 2005. So I had already been in that field for a long time, but I didn't really start working on my own stuff, and the first book I actually co-authored with a friend of mine, began in 2011.
Okay. So now you've earned a Bachelor of Science in Earth Science Geology from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte and a Master of Arts in Biblical Studies from the Trinity Theological College of Seminary and Seminary. Mm-hmm. Quite a mouthful there. Mm-hmm. What inspired you to write fiction?
Well, actually, what inspired me to write fiction had to do more with my personal situation. I was living when I got together with my current husband. We were living in an apartment at first, and that apartment was haunted. And we were there for about 3.5 years about 2.5 years before we actually moved out. We had a lot of experiences there on a daily basis, and it was because of those experiences that I began doing some paranormal research and things like that. And I had a lot of these experiences. So I was like, I should start sharing these things or something. I started getting in my mind as to what I should do with that. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine actually approached me about, she had a dream, and that is the prologue of the first book. And Karen Vance Hammond had come to me, and she had asked me to work with her on this project. And she had come up with some basic ideas for the story, but, we started talking about it, and I was like, well, why don't we make this into an actual murder mystery? So we began working together on it, but it was the combination of the fact that she had this really unusual, very striking, dramatic dream, and the fact that I was dealing with all this paranormal activity in my home. So we kind of brought it together in the story, and that's where the inspiration came from, was because of that. And, it just kind of clicked from that point on. Now, she ended up not being able to continue working on the project. She worked with me on the first book and just for about the prologue of the second book, but then she had some situations change with her personal family situation, as one of her family close relatives started getting really sick, and she had to bow out of the project. But I continued working on the project. She, gave me her blessings and everything, and I continued working on it solo. And then actually ended up writing a third book, which she had not been in. We hadn't really talked about that prior to this point anyway. She wasn't involved in that one at all. This was a complete new aspect of the story. So, it was kind of interesting to literally go from, experiencing these things in the paranormal to begin to write, incorporate those things into the stories and, say how these things, how you have the hair standing on edge and you feel the cold breeze and all these things happen, that I was able to explain how they felt, in the stories.
Yeah, that is incredible. I mean, when you actually get the opportunity to describe the feelings in a book, it is really, especially if you have a connection to it. You know what I'm saying? If you've already felt those things. So then tell us about the premise of the Monastery Murders. What is this whole series about?
Well, the series, basically there is a serial killer that is in a small town. It's a rural bay town that's like a fishing town up in Maine. And very small population overall. It is, it's a fictional town. There's no town named Wattsville, Maine. And then there's another town that's mentioned called Sanger. The premise of it is that there's this serial killer that has been in this community, and it's a very small community. So everyone, of course, probably knows who this killer is and don't realize who the killer, is. They are looking at everybody, and they're not sure who is responsible for these murders. But the thing is that the ghosts of the victims of the serial killer they begin haunting the investigators in order to help solve their own murders.
Oh, that's incredible. So
that's where, so the ghosts are actually contributing. They become kind of like pseudo characters in the story. They're ghosts. They're scary because they're ghosts, not necessarily because they're bad. You have these detectives and everything that are being affected by these spirits, and they don't really know what to think about it because, you think, as a person would think of in a reality sort of way, they're a detective, they're supposed to look at facts and everything, and yet they're getting some of their clues from these ghosts. How do they incorporate that stuff into their actual case and not look crazy? So.
Yeah, you can't really present that as like evidence to a court. It's be like, well, Ghost Joe told me.
Yeah, exactly. So the ghost, when they're coming to Christopher Williams is one of the primary characters, and they come to him, and he's investigating this case and everything, and he's sitting there trying to figure out what to do because he's starting to get these unusual, unusual information from very unexpected and irregular places, and so he doesn't even know who to talk to about. And that's kind of a fun thing that I was able to do because I have done some paranormal investigations in the past. And so I know a lot about that field, because of living in a paranormally active home. We began doing some paranormal investigating ourselves because we wanted to understand more of what we were dealing with. And so I actually had him begin to have a girlfriend. He meets a girl who is, she works at one of these bed and breakfasts, at an old bed and breakfast, and she's been doing some kind of amateur paranormal investigations herself because she knows that there's been some activity in the bed and breakfast at the home. And so whenever there's not somebody, staying, she'll set up the cameras at night and things like that. And she'll do her own investigations. So he meets her in the course of the story. So he begins having this relationship with this girl, and she's kind of afraid to tell him about her paranormal stuff because, she's, nobody wants to really talk about that sort of thing unless you know how the other person thinks about, You don't know if they think they're going to be crazy or what, So, so she's sitting there worried about telling him about what she does for fun, and he's worried about telling her about everything. And then he manages, I had a kind of a funny scene where he managed to walk in on her while she was doing some of her, using her headphones to listen to some sound stuff and just some sound files. And so he's like, what are you up to? What are you doing? And so she finally has to admit to him, what she's doing. And he's like, oh, well, now I guess I got somebody I could talk to about this, And so it brings out this, this new aspect where they can kind of communicate with each other and go into doing some of the research. She can help him using her equipment and stuff on trying to communicate with the spirits. So it's a little, it's kind of an interesting little twist on that part. It's fun to bring that part into it, to bring these characters out. The thing that's a little bit different about my books is that they're multi-perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So you have one chapter. Some people like that and some people don't, but it really works well with the mystery because every single type of person, each character adds their own aspect to the story. So you have the detective side and you have the victim side and you have the killer, themselves. And then you have other people that are interacting that might have some, forensics and stuff. You have different people that have their own parts that they add to the story that they know about. And you do not, as a reader, know who the killer is.
Mm-hmm.
So because I do it from the perspective of the killer or the perspective of everything, I can actually have the perspective of the killer without telling you who the killer is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool to see something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And the fact that you have all these different characters in this small town, everybody is suspect. It's got to be just incredible to see all these different characters interact with each other. I mean, you got the ghosts on the payroll of the police department, but it's cool. It really is, because I mean, not many stories, especially mystery stories, incorporate the victim as another line of sight when it comes to,
Mm-hmm.
describing the story. And really the tool of using a ghost has been used for so many stories. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really good tool to get information from the past that the reader would not know. And I think it's an incredible thing that you're doing. It's really cool. And the fact that, I mean, I'm a ghost fan. I'm a huge ghost fan. And so it's just like, yeah, I'd like having that interaction. And the fact that there's so many theories out there about what ghosts really are and things like that. And, when it comes to like interacting with a spirit, all that stuff intrigues me. So yeah, it's really cool. And the fact that they can kind of give clues to what happened to their past life, I guess. But
sure. I actually have a murder scene, but it's from 3 perspectives. So you have and it's in the beginning, the prologue of book 2, there's a murder that takes place. You're already aware that this murder has taken place in book 1, but you don't know any details about it, So you actually see the murder take place in the prologue of book 2, and you have it from the victim's perspective. You have the killer's perspective, who you still do not know who it is. So, and then you also have the witness, and it's very dark. So there are only certain things that the witness can see and hear, from a distance without letting themselves be known. The killer, of course, I'm only revealing certain things because you don't know who it is. So you have certain things from their perspective, and then the victim, you only have from this perspective as long as they're aware of what's going on. So when they are unconscious, you do not get any perspective from them anymore. So there's a lot of different, there's kind of a different, a little twist on, that. I know there was a movie that was a while ago that had, this murder scene or the assassination scene from a bunch of different perspectives. And it was pretty interesting how they did that. This is a little different, but it's the same kind of thing where you have different aspects that you can gather from these different perspectives. And it's because you're trying to get the information from all these different characters, from the forensics, from the detectives, from the victims and such, that you are trying to figure out. It's an actual murder mystery. You do not know who the killer is. And in fact, I warn people that when they read my books, that they will not find out who the killer is in the first book. They find out who the killer is in actually the second book, because there's a plot twist at the end of the first book. But so the first book is like the what, the second book is the who, because you find out who it is, but then it's not exactly who you expect, or something about them you don't expect. And then the third book is the why. So it actually goes, and there's a dual time frame going on where it goes back in time for 30 years, and it shows you the progression of all the things that happened. It shows you how all these different pieces of the puzzle have fall together, and all these things that they found and pieces of evidence and everything, how they fall into place and actually help you solve the murder. Not just solve it, who it is, but why.
Which is actually a really incredible thing too, because I mean, when you think about it, the fact that you have a perspective of murder, okay, that right there can open up so much psychological details. And
yes.
It's just amazing to me. All right. And you said that you have an excerpt from your latest book, Method in Madness. Would you care to share that with us?
Yes, I would love to. It's actually one of my favorite chapters in the whole series. And it is from a dream sequence that I've had to redact a couple things because I don't want to give too much away, because it is a murder mystery. So I don't want to tell you who this person is talking about. I don't mind you knowing that the name of this person is Katie. I don't have a problem with you knowing about her, because she is a main character, but she's neither the victim or the killer. I'll just give you that much because it's pretty obvious. So anyway, let me go ahead and it's chapter 5 from Method in the Madness. Lying flat on her back, Katie steadied her breathing in a repeated slow rhythm. I don't know what to do. Making a concerted effort to calm herself, she took several long, deep breaths. Each one dragged her deeper and deeper into her thoughts. Remember what Mom taught me. Think of the sound of snowflakes as they gently land. Think of the quiet winter meadow surrounded by trees. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Katie focused her mind and shut the world away. In an instant, she was transported to a peaceful, snowy meadow. The happy chirping sounds of small sparrows flitted in the trees almost seemed real. The only other sound she heard was the light pitter-patter of snowflakes as they landed all around her on the white, shimmering lawn. Gazing about, Katie saw a familiar army of evergreen trees standing guard nearby. In front of her, a snow-covered path led down the hill to the monastery pond. In a dreamy stride, Katie was automatically drawn towards the deep, icy waters. With each step, the cold winter grass released its hold and the snow began to melt. By the time she arrived at the pond, it had completely disappeared, revealing a green, grassy field. Surrounding her, she saw the familiar monastery campus and the beautiful garden with its statues. Standing at the water's edge, Katie found a lone rowboat that seemed to be waiting for her. Without a second thought, she gingerly sat down on the slatted seat and rowed to the center of the pond. Again, she took a moment to gaze around her in the quiet solitude. As she watched, the sun emerged from behind the large fluffy clouds and shone brightly, warming her skin. Without warning, Katie was suddenly pushed from the boat and into the water. She sank deeper and deeper as ropes mysteriously formed around her hands and ankles. A thick rope noose ensnared her neck and pulled her downward by an unseen heavy weight. An icy chill pierced through the slumbering fog as the frigid water stole each breath one by one. What is happening? With her freighted sense of reason, she thought, how can I save myself? Grasping desperately at the twisted ropes that clung around her neck, the realization of her impending fate consumed Katie. Someone help me! Hundreds of air bubbles escaped, cascading towards the surface as her battle for life continued. Pulling and tugging unsuccessfully at the tethered weight that held her there, her mind reeled in panic. Water filled her lungs, extinguishing any hope of survival. Her mind screamed, "Oh God, no!" With that, the last ounce of awareness washed away and her body went limp. The eerie shroud of death seemed to envelop her, leaving only a cooling corpse behind. Strangely, the dreamlike vision continued as her spirit drifted away in the water. Fear was locked on the mortal face as a pair of empty eyes stared out into the darkness. An eerie calm filled the silence as she pulled away. Looking at the motionless body, sight of a familiar face confused her. In the dark water, a younger version of someone floated with lifeless eyes staring back at her. Slivers of rotting flesh drifted loosely from the face in the slow undercurrent. Trying to understand what she was seeing, Katie's mind raced with questions. She wanted to scream, but feared losing her last breath in the strange nightmare. As she watched the body drift in the water, it seemed to become more waterlogged and decomposed with every moment. As his dark, dead eyes stared at her, the body gained new life. It tried to speak, but no sound would come as it mouthed the words, "Watch out, he will kill you." As it concluded its warning, its eyes instantly went blank again. The last of the air bubbles escaped its mouth and drifted upward towards the water's surface. Lost in the dream, Katie was adrift between reality and spirit. The quiet calm of the darkness surrounded her. Just as she thought the nightmare had finally ended, a pair of unseen hands suddenly grabbed her calves and dragged her further down into the black water. Immediately, she was jolted from the confines of her dream world and back inside her own bedroom. Katie wondered, is this real? Opening her eyes, she could see nothing in the shadowy darkness of her room. Still feeling the hands pulling on her legs, she jerked away as she repeatedly yelled, "Let me go!" Kicking her legs several times, Katie clawed her way towards the head of the bed and reached for the small lamp on the nightstand. Turning it on, she looked for the culprit, only to find the same face from her dreams staring back at her. When a look of horror filled Katie's face, it released her legs and stared back at her with sorrowful eyes. And I have to stop there because I can't show too much.
That was incredible. Honestly, it's terrifying. It really is. Yeah, I mean, talk about a bad day in the winter time, but, thank God it was a dream. But it's so vivid. It really is. I really like the style that you have of writing because, like you said, you kind of write from two different types of perspectives, in a lot of the stuff that you're describing, and the fact that she's in this dream, and the way that you're describing her almost going through a complete death scene, of her own death. That is scary. So I like this. This is, you say it's a mystery book, right? It's not horror. It's
yes, it is. It's a slash. It's, I would say I would call it a paranormal murder mystery suspense thriller.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of suspense to it. And it does have some thriller. It kind of edges on the horror. The way that I describe my books is that it's a combination of Hitchcock's suspense, Christie's mystery with a dash of King's horror.
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely scary. And so, I mean, I'm just kind of blown away. I really like the concept that you use the dream to almost describe another murder. You know what I'm saying? And that's really intriguing. So, we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. We'll talk more about, the other things that you have written and a little bit more about the Monastery Murders. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Have you ever found yourself looking for a gift but just can't find something that's unique and different? There are many online shops to find jewelry, but most of those sites carry manufactured creations that are mass-produced. The internet is at your fingertips. You shouldn't have to travel through all the realms to get something amazing. At Willow Kestrel Jewelry, you will find handcrafted creations. Whether you are looking for a wire-wrapped pendant, natural shells, or beautiful precious gemstones, you will find it all at Willow Kestrel Jewelry Shop at Etsy.com. Willow Kestrel Jewelry uses genuine gemstones, including amethyst, moonstone, citrine, rose quartz, larimar, malachite, sapphire, and many more. You can make it rain with gemstones. I know I did. And it felt like I had been transported back in time to when me and my friend had to take a ring back to a mountainous volcano and toss it in to save the world. Now you can use the coupon code Blackwell20. That's Blackwell with the number 20 to save 20% at checkout. Search Willow Kestrel Jewelry under Shops at Etsy.com today. In a world full of obstacles and haphazard graphics, one company has broken the mold of building amazing book covers, banners, video trailers, and more. Book Banners, Etc. is your premier source for the most epic designs. Constructed from the mind of independent author Lynn Lamb, Book Banners, Etc. is dedicated to making your dream a reality. They offer an array of marketing materials at affordable prices. If you're looking for book covers that pop, banners that captivate, swag for signing, and alluring video trailers, stop by www.bookbannersetc.com. That's bookbannersetc.com. Imagine your world, then make it epic with www.bookbannersetc.com. All right, and we are back. Now, have you received any awards for your writing?
Yes, I actually have received 3 awards. I've received in 2014 and in 2015 I received the Paranormal Awards for The Secrets in the Shallows and The Devil in the Details, respectively. So those were 2 in a row. Now, they stopped doing the Paranormal Awards before the 3rd book came out, so I wasn't able to enter them in for that one. Devil in the Details also won for the New Apple Award. Mm-hmm. So for publishing, and that was for mystery. And then in addition to that, both Secrets in the Shallows and Devil in the Details have received 5 stars from readers' favorites. So I'm waiting on the third book to be to go through that same process. But they have won both 5-star. They've both earned 5-star reviews through that. So I'm really proud of that. And I've entered Method in the Madness and some other book awards, but I haven't heard from those yet. But I'm waiting on those.
Yeah, it does take some time. Now, we've talked a little bit about it. The fact that you have been an editor and a contributing editor for numerous published books, and you've written articles for periodicals and internet blogs. How has that differed from your fiction writing? Has it helped your research?
Oh, absolutely. Especially the editing, because I see writing from a different perspective. I know what an editor is looking for. I do not try to edit my own books. That does not work, but I'm aware of what an editor is looking for. So as I'm rereading my own books, I can look for those things in specifically, especially if I haven't read a certain part for a while, I can go back after, a month later and reread certain parts of the book, and I can try to look at them from my editor eyes, perspective per se, and see, okay, have I done this with the characters? Have I been doing something that I shouldn't be doing? Have I put too many certain things in there that, I don't want to have? Have I done something, enough descriptives and things like that, but not too many, so there's a balance, you want to have a decent amount of things to show what is around you in the story, but you don't want to have it so heavy with that it bogs it down. So there's a nice healthy balance with regard to that.
Yeah, and I'm sure your editors are really happy about that too. They at least take it and look it over.
Yes, that does help a lot, and I think they appreciate that very much. So, but that's helped a lot. And then also, by doing things, I've actually done some author podcasts. I've done numerous paranormal podcasts as well, and also have done some author panels. So we've actually talked about things as authors. What do we do when we run into these situations, and and we've done some videos and stuff that are actually available on YouTube and such, where you can, we've actually talked about certain things. So how do we attempt, this type of scene or this particular set of circumstances in our story in order to make sure that everything's not so, mundane and it's fresh and it's not the same thing that's been done, 20,000 times.
Yeah,
So,
it makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to the fact that you actually talk to other authors, you have like an author board that you've worked with, you all these different things that you do, that it kind of helps market your book in a lot of ways, because, well, not necessarily your book, but it markets you as an author, and it gives you that, I guess, credibility would probably be the right word for it, to say, hey, we've come across these situations before. Here's the information that we've got, and we want to share it with the world. And that helps so many other authors who are just getting started too. I mean, it really does.
Sure.
And although you've written the final book of the Monastery Murders, the Method of Madness, which you just shared with us, you haven't given up on writing. What do you have next on your plate?
Well, basically, what I am working on is a prequel/sequel series to the Monastery Murders. And it's going to be another trilogy, but it's a totally new aspect. The murder case has been already resolved, per se. There's still some things that will continue into the next story that bring out some things that are kind of residual aspects of the previous story. So it is better to read the first series first, although I do try to I am incorporating enough information in the first book so that you don't have to read the whole series of the first series in order to be able to understand what's going on in this series. So what it is that there is a particular item that was discovered, a cursed item, if you will, in the first series. I won't say what it is or when it's discovered, but I don't say where it came from, how it ended up where it was, or anything about it. So I thought, as I was trying to figure out what am I going to do next, I thought, well, what I can do is just do a story that focuses on this cursed item. So what I'm doing is I'm literally doing a kind of as I did in the third book, which has the 2 timelines, which sounds confusing, but it's okay. It works. Mm-hmm. There are 2 timelines in this next series. And the first book will focus on the creation of this cursed item, as well as how it continues to affect people in the current timeline that is after the events of the first series. So some of those characters will continue on in the second series, but it's not in the same aspect. It's not a rehash of the first part of the first story. It's like a new whole chapter of the story. And the first book will talk about the creation of the item and how it became cursed. And then the second book will show how it ends up how it's discovered in modern time. And that will actually take place in like World War II era.
Oh, wow.
And so this is going to be kind of like a journey of this particular item that's a cursed item. The third book will show a little bit of time after it's been discovered, how it ends up specifically in the place where it was discovered in the first series. So it basically comes full circle to where it was left so that it is found later in the first series.
I like that.
So I'm looking forward to finishing this series, but it's probably going to be, I'm hoping to have I'm planning on having the first book released by around Halloween.
Oh, good.
Year. So that will be the first book. And the next one I'm hoping to have, within a year. Unfortunately, I can't write full time. If I could, then, I'd be able to do these things, finish these a lot faster. But I, have a day job that I work in at actually a regional magazine, mm-hmm. in our area. And so this is like my nights and weekends kind of work.
Your guilty pleasures.
Yes, I would love to be able to do it full time, but maybe one day, I'm hoping.
Yeah. Are you going to keep the same kind of multi-perspective style of writing with this new series? That's incredible. I like that. I really like that idea. Anybody who's out there who's listening, if you're an author and you haven't tried something like this, take yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and try something like this. First off, definitely pick up some of Kimberly Brouillette's books and check out the style that she uses, because it's definitely unique. Now, when it comes to marketing, Kimberly, what kind of marketing things do you do? Because now we live in a big, fast-paced internet world. It's not the same publishing world that it used to be, 20 years ago. What do you do for marketing of your stories?
Well, the main thing that I do right now, unfortunately, I don't have a huge budget, because everything that I put into it is pretty much my own. But I do a lot of Facebook and social media. Of course, I'm on Twitter. In fact, I met you via mm-hmm. Twitter. And I have a pretty large following. I have about almost just under 11,000 followers on Twitter. So I've got a pretty decent following. Of course, it can always grow, but and I have a decent following on Facebook. I do a lot of group activities as far as, on Facebook and social media and such. And I do try to interact a lot with other authors. I do go to some marketing fairs and book fairs and art shows and things like that in the area. Mine is, with regard to that, is more regional. I do have some local stores do have my book. There's a reason why I don't have them in most of the brick and mortar, but they are available on Amazon. So, we have that. But, as far as marketing, a lot has been through social media and, whatever I can do as far as going to events and such, or working in co-op with other authors to, get the word out about each other's books. I've also been involved in some social media. Sometimes they'll have like a takeover type of thing where they have, a group takeover, and you'll have a certain amount of time where you can, as an author, talk about things about your books and things like that. As I've also mentioned, I've done a lot of podcasts, such as yours. I've done probably about 150 podcasts over the years. So, I have some consistency out there in that regard. And, they vary from, book and author podcasts like yours, but then there's other ones that are specifically geared towards the paranormal, supernatural, or it could be just specifically on horror, things like that. So I have a variety because of my type of books. I can kind of stretch into a number of genres, which does help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and the fact that you've been doing this for a while, the fact that you've been on so many podcasts, you've gotten your name out there in a Web 2.0 world. Okay. And this is exactly what people had in mind when they started developing the Web 2.0, where it was videos and podcasts and things that were more around marketing. I tell you, if it's one thing that I've learned about the internet so far in the last 5 or 6 years, is that if you market yourself online in a way that gets your name out there, you can do anything. You really can with a very, very low budget. You don't have to be extremely rich to do this kind of stuff if you do it right. Sure. Now, there's people out there who try to spend a lot of money on the internet and they realize they don't get much of a response back. Okay. It's more like, wait a second, I just spent $2,000 on what? I didn't get any exposure. I didn't get anywhere. All I got was a couple of, posters or whatever. And that was it. So I think you're doing exactly what you need to do to get marketing out there. You're doing an excellent job with that. But having said all that, I mean, what advice would you give a new author who's just getting started, especially in this day and age?
Well, the first thing I would say is, you have to decide very early on which way you're going to go. So are you going to go more of a self-publishing route, or are you going to try to get queries out there and get an actual traditional publisher? So the way that you handle that is completely different as far as the way that you market yourself, if you are looking to go more of a traditional route, then you really aren't, it's ill-advised to go on the self-publishing route at all. But what I would recommend in either case is that you build up your social media platform, because whether or not you are self-published or you're going to go traditional publishing, a traditional publisher will probably not even look at you if you don't have a certain amount of, of people and following you, that are following you. So I would say, a lot of them say, you have to have around 20,000 people following you before some publishers will even turn their head your way. Some of them might not need that sort of platform, but, you need to have that developed before you even start querying, really. And, you also, one thing that I recommend highly is that before you submit your, whether or not you're going a traditional route or you're going this, the publishing, self-publishing route, is that you have a professional editor. And what I mean by an editor is not a proofreader. Mm-hmm. An editor, there's actually several types of editors, and a lot of authors that are amateurs and they're just getting started don't necessarily realize that there are different types of editors. There are editors that are focused on content. That's what I do. I do content editing, where I look at a story and I'm not as interested in looking at every single, dot and tittle per se. I'm not that's not my focus. My focus is finding the holes in your story. So I'll say, I'll go through your story and I'll say, well, what does, you've talked about this person for 5 pages, but I have no clue what they look like, seriously, I've run into that situation in several stories where there was one story that, I literally turned down because I read a page and a half and I stopped, and because they were wanting me to edit, and I was like, I looked at it and I had gone a page and a half and I had no idea where these people, they were in a Jeep going through some desert. I had no clue where they were going, where they had come from, who they were, what their names were, what they looked like, or anything. All I knew was that they were going through this desert. And I was already bored because I didn't have a clue what was going on. And so I literally I got that far and I sent it back to him. I said, listen, I said, you have to give the reader something to grab onto. You have to have them understand like where they're at, or something about the story, even at least something where it will capture their imagination so that they have some clue what's going on. Because if you don't, then they're just basically wondering. They're sitting there the whole time while they're reading. They're wondering what they're reading. What is this all about?
It kind of makes me wonder because, we live in a generation now where people watch movies, right? And when you were describing that, the only thing I could think of is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And that's about the only thing that came to my mind. Because they do leave that mystery at the very beginning. But even in a movie, they only put that out there for a certain amount of time, but so you have all the visuals. Sure. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, It's different in a book world. And I think that our generation, or at least this generation that's coming out, has a difficult time putting those details at the beginning of a book because of the fact that they know that what they're seeing in their mind, the mystery they want to present in their mind and to somebody else, everybody who reads a book, they're going to read your book and see something different. Somebody else is going to read your book and see something different. But those details are always going to remain the same if they're put in. And I think you made an excellent point with that, with the fact that, when you do write a story, within a page and a half, or at least 2 pages or whatever, you should have some details for your reader to grab onto. That's something I've not heard on this show yet, but it makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I recommend, and this is something that I do that I feel like helps bring my stories. My readers tell me they feel like I've been told that my books are page turners, but I've also been told that they feel like they can relate to the characters. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that is possible is, okay, you noticed, with the short excerpt that I read earlier, that I'm telling it from that perspective. So I'm actually giving the reader an inside view on what's going on in her head, what she's seeing, what she's doing. And even though it's a dream world, you're getting it from her perspective. So because it is more from her perspective, it's more like the reader can have a direct association with it. I call it writing from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing, too, that I love about books that I hate about movies. The fact that you can watch a character on TV or on the movie screen or whatever, and you can get kind of an idea of what they're going through. But when you read a story, and you read especially like a Stephen King novel, you're just like, oh my gosh, my stomach feels sick. It's like, you get those emotions. And that's the beauty of literature. It really is. So I'm glad that you've really touched on that. So now, we have hit a point of the show, Kimberly, where, we actually send our authors through some type of trivia game or trial by fire or whatever it is. And we've actually got a game here called 2 Truths and 1 Lie. And here's how it works. Okay. You have to pick 2 truths, 2 things that are true about you, and then 1 lie about you. And then I have to choose which one is the lie. Okay. So, this can be very difficult. This can be very easy. So I want you to think about these truths and lies. Okay. We're going to do best 2 out of 3, and whoever wins gets 12 billion points. All right. Now, now these points can't be used for anything. You can't exchange them for goods or anything. I heard that somebody was going to use their points inside of a story somehow and use them as like a currency of a town. I don't know. But so are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go first. All right, here we go. 2 truths, 1 lie. All right. First thing is I do not like coffee. I only like tea. The second thing is I drive a stick shift. And the third thing is I have a cat. So which one is the lie?
The lie is that you have a cat?
No, that's incorrect. That's true.
That's true?
Yep.
Okay.
The lie was that I don't like coffee. I love coffee. Coffee is life. Anybody out there who understands my boat of being a coffee addict, I'll see you at the Coffee Addicts Anonymous meeting next week. But yes, I love coffee. So, all right. So you go ahead. It's your turn. 2 truths, 1 lie.
Okay. 2 truths. Let's say, okay, that I speak 3 languages, That number 2, that I have been I have lived near the equator. And the third thing is that I have 2 grandkids.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. I think that the lie is that you speak 3 different languages.
You're right.
Is it?
It is that yes, but I actually do speak 2 languages.
Oh, that's good. That's good. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You know, that's what they say.
Yep.
All right, so now we're tied. All right, so here's going to be the tiebreaker. All right, here we go. 3 things. All right. When I was 15, I learned how to drive a car. The next thing is, when I was 30, I learned how to drive a car good. and let's see here. And the last thing is, that car that I learned how to drive good was actually a DeLorean that was used in the Back to the Future 2 movie. Which one is the lie?
That you learned when you were 15?
No, that is a lie too. That is good. Okay, yes, it is a lie. And actually, the DeLorean thing was a lie too. I really wish I had a DeLorean, but I don't.
You're right. Yeah, I was thinking that one was so far fetched that you might actually have done it.
That would have been fun. No, actually, I didn't learn how to drive until I was 18 years old. If anybody out there can believe it. Yeah, it wasn't just because I was nervous. It was just because, I don't know. I was one of those kids that were just like, I would rather ride my bike to school, you know? I was really physically fit back in the day. No longer are those days still here. But anyhow, and congratulations, you did win 12 billion points here at the Emit Blackwell Show for winning the True Truths and 1 Lie. Congratulations.
Yay!
All right. So now, Kimberly, where can people find your books?
Well, the primary place that people can find my books is on Amazon, to be honest. You can also find them on Barnes & Noble, but I actually, I have more of a direct relationship with Amazon. You can find both the Kindle books, as well as Kindle Unlimited, and you can also find the paperback books on Amazon. So those are available now. Now we are actually, me and my husband are producing. He's actually an actor and does 300 voices, so he's the perfect person to narrate my books. So we're actually working. Yeah, so we're actually working on publishing my books in audiobook format this year. So I'm hoping to at least make some more headway by the time I release the new book. I'm hoping to have some headway on the audiobooks being released as well. And, cause we have the equipment and everything that we need. He's, like I said, an actor, so I'm not too worried about that aspect. And we've already begun that process, but, there's a lot of work involved in that, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. I know because I've done audio for a very long time. I know what it's. Yeah. It's
a lot. You have to do a lot of making sure everything's labeled properly and everything. So I've done sound audio, editing and stuff in the past. I've done, video production and stuff as well. I'm also a graphic designer. So, those are some things that I actually design all my own covers as well. So my book covers are, my own creation, and I can't wait to release my next book cover because it's going to be really cool. I've only given people a sneak peek of it right now, but hopefully as soon as I can feel comfortable with getting the release date out, then I'll go ahead and do a cover reveal for the next book. The other thing that you can do is if you are interested in personalized copies, I do have actually opportunity to do that, but you have to contact me directly for that. You can do that through Facebook and Twitter, as well as I'm on Instagram and Pinterest, although Facebook and Twitter are my primary methods for communicating as far as my social media platforms. So if you are interested in getting any personalized copies, that's the best way to get a hold of it. And I am actually putting together an order right now because I need to restock. I've actually sold almost out completely of my books.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually putting that together now if people are interested in pre-ordering. So, that is something I can, that if people want to contact me, my Twitter ID is right for you, WRITERIGHT, the number 4 and the letter U. Mm-hmm. And then of course, Kimberly Brouillette, is author editor, is my, author page on Facebook, which my last name is spelled BROUILLETTE. You can also easily find me on Google. If you type in Kimberly Brouillette, you should be able to find me on the first page. So,
wow. Well, that's quite a plethora of places you're at. So definitely check into Kimberly Brouillette, everybody. Check out her style of writing. It's very unique. And I want to thank you so much, Kimberly, for being here on the show. It was a great experience having you on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It'd be great to stay in touch.
Yeah, and let me know. Send me a message when you get that next series started up and out there. I kind of want to take a little look at that one too, okay?
Oh, of course.
All right. Well, this is Emit Blackwell signing out. Keep on reading and keep on writing, my friends.
It's the Emit Blackwell Show, searching the web for the most creative, intriguing, and captivating people in the world.